Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dropping the Glove post-Thanksgiving special. You know what that means, Tim? Everybody who's in the playoffs right now makes the playoffs. That's the rule. That's how it goes. The playoffs start today. So I apologize to all the teams who didn't make it. I'm looking at you, Buffalo Sabres. I'm looking at you, Philadelphia Flyers. You guys didn't make it. You were close. Better luck next year. I'm looking at you, Utah Hockey Club. Calgary Flames almost snuck in, you little stinkers, Ryan Lomberg. But all kidding aside, Tim, it does mean a lot to be in a playoff position at Thanksgiving. So all these teams who are in the playoff position, you have drastically better odds to make the playoffs if you weren't in. So good for you. Season's not even halfway over, but this is a benchmark. Players look at that. Are there any teams, Tim, that you see in the playoffs? And there's, again, very, very early. And I know, like, even in the West, there's teams that are tied for the last playoff spot. Edmonton, Calgary, they're right there. Any teams that are substantially outside of the playoffs, and this is not on the agenda. Tim doesn't like it when I do this. I'm going off the cuff. Are there any teams substantially out of the playoffs? I'm talking 6 to 10 points out that you think are going to make that jump into the playoffs in the next 4 months?
Well, 6 to 10, I'm not sure. I would say St. Louis Blues, who are 3 spots out of the second wild card, but points-wise, only 2 points out. Like, that's a team I could see climbing the ranking.
Yeah.
That's a really good-looking, future prospect of the rest of the season type of thing. The Sabres have been doing really well. They slowed down a little bit, but they had won 7 of 8 going into the weekend, so I could see them climbing back up to maybe the Islanders, but beyond that, I think it's more or less set. You mentioned the Flyers and the Flames. Both of those teams are in a playoff spot right now.
Are you sure?
Yes. They're both in the wild card.
Oh, that's right.
Second wild card. Yeah, I mean, Tampa could
Tampa's
obviously – I think probably I would pick Tampa over Philly, but Philly keeps winning. They've won 3 in a row now, and they've gotten a lot of big clutch goals from Mishkov, so – yeah, I think more or less you see these teams, maybe 1 or 2 in each conference could swap out, but it's more than likely set.
Yeah, I guess the first 2 teams out are perennial playoff contenders, Stanley Cup contenders, Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
So things will change. I just think I like to check in. But anyways, moving on. How was your Thanksgiving, Tim? Came to Michigan, got a huge blizzard under your belt. What was it like?
Yeah, it was cold. We were up in Lansing, where Julia's family's from, so it was really nice. We did Thanksgiving dinner. We cut down a Christmas tree at one of those farms and bonfires and all kinds of just wholesome family stuff. Her sister was there with her younger nephews, like 4 and 2 or something. So really young, a lot of fun playing with them. It was a good time. It was very cold. We went to the Michigan State game on Saturday. Only lasted a half. Like, people were leaving. It was 22 degrees. And
no kidding. Wow.
Yeah, it was cold. They played Rutgers. They got blown out anyway. But it was a good trip. It was really nice.
Well, that's nice, Tim. That's good. My Thanksgiving was good. We went to my wife's family's house and just enjoyed a nice Thanksgiving dinner. Her dad works in the hospital. So he works midnight. So he's 7 years. He's working, all the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever. He just started. This is the first year he gets the holidays at home. So he was hosting, which was very, very nice. We get to show up, have some drinks, nice dinner, don't have to worry about anything, and then we go home with leftovers. It's beautiful. Beautiful setup. And the kids love it. I love it. There's no cleanup. Hosting is such a pain in the behind, isn't it? Absolute disaster.
A lot of work.
But it was a lot of fun. And then the cherry on top is you send me a fight between 2 friends of the show, Matthew Olivier and Ryan Lomberg. I thought you were joking when you sent this. You said, hey, did you see the Olivier Lomberg fight? What? How are my 2 buddies going at it? Especially Lomberg, who is fighting way out of his weight class. But lo and behold, I pull up hockeyfights.com, and they're going at it. Olivier beats the doors off him, rightfully so. He's got 70 pounds and a ton of experience, and just strength and height. And every factor, he just outweighs him. It's tougher. He beats the doors off him. I'm going to Ryan Lomberg is standing in there. And Matt, don't look now, but Matthew Olivier is slowly becoming the best power forward in hockey. Like, he scores, I would say, every week. He's beating up everybody. He's a factor in every single game the Columbus Blue Jackets play. It's amazing to see. It's a really nice story from where he started in the AHL, working his way up, getting a contract, getting a chance. He's a hell of a player, and he was on our show, so good for him.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. Not only were they both friends of the show, but the timing of it. Like they were both
Yeah,
on the show just a week prior. Like that's
yeah.
kind of crazy. And obviously, awesome guys, awesome interviews. We got a lot of great feedback on both of them. Olivier did beat him up pretty good, and it is true. Like he's blossoming right now and showing off. And I think this is a thing that a lot of the tough guys want to do is like score some goals and prove that they can play, and they're there to
Hmm.
be a hockey player first. And not a lot of guys are able to do it. You know what I mean? Like they keep fighting in order to stay relevant,
Yeah.
in order to stay in the lineup, but it's not based on what they're doing offensively or whatever. And Olivier is kind of the unicorn here, where he's not, obviously not a Tom Wilson or Brady Kachuk or that type of power forward, but there's not a lot of guys that can do what he's doing right now, and it makes it even more special.
And who the heck would have guessed that the Columbus Blue Jackets, with their just horrendous, horrific offseason, obviously the tragedy with Johnny Gaudreau, trading Patrick Laine, just awful, awful offseason. They're above 500. They're 11-9-3. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot. Who would have ever guessed that they would be in this position? Werenski's playing fantastic. Monahan's playing great. And obviously Matthew Olivier is playing really, really solid hockey. So it has to be the feel-good story of the season so far, the Columbus Blue Jackets, what they're doing.
One of the best stories of this is James Van Riemsdyk. He
Yeah.
signed. They were obviously missing some top six talent with Gaudreau gone, with Laine gone. He signed after all that went down, knowing what he was walking into, a team that wasn't expected to be good, a team that was obviously struggling.
Yeah.
And he signed in, and it's a big shoes to step into in a big situation. And he did it, and he's bringing that veteran presence. He was the guy that had a lot of the young team members and European guys over for Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Like, it's really important to have those type of guys in the lineup. I know Boston's missing him, so it's a cool part of what they're doing. Even though he's not putting up a ton of numbers, you have to believe he's part of that success.
Did we have him on the show?
We did. That was probably 4 years ago. That was a long time ago. He was
One
awful.
of the worst interviews, if I recall.
Yeah, he was still in the Flyers at that point. Just very, very boring.
You can't have it all, right? You can't have it all. Like Matthew Olivier, that guy's got it all. What I'm excited to see what his contract is. UFA, still relatively young. I think he's 28, 29. What's his number? I was throwing around with him off the air. We were just having some fun. I thought 2.2. He makes 1.1 now, double his salary. I said 2.2 for 3 years. It's a good number for you. What do you think? Is he outpricing himself now? Is he going to be in the $3 million? It can't be in the $3 million range. Do you think?
Well, it's weird because he scored against Montreal the day after our interview last week, and he played over 16 minutes in that game. And so that's the kind of thing, like if he's a top 9 forward where he's not putting up a ton of points, but if he can give you 10 to 12 goals every year and do what he's doing, physically, and all of a sudden he's what we wanted like Trent Frederick to be. You know what I mean? Like that top 9 forward that can just pop a little offense. Maybe he's worth 2.5, maybe. I wonder what he thinks his number is. He said he was trying not to think about it, but it's hard.
He didn't say that. He said he's thinking about it, but he's trying to put it out of his head because it's
Sure.
like, when you're that age and you're having that good of a season, you have to think about it. It's a no-brainer. But going back to your Bruins, Trent Frederick, 26 games played, -9, 3 goals. Would you, if you were Don Sweeney, trade straight up right now for Matthew Olivier, Trent Frederick?
Yes.
You would?
Who wouldn't? Yes.
Frederick for Olivier, straight up.
Yeah.
Wow. This is a guy, Trent Frederick, who the Bruins were reportedly shopping and they want a first rounder for him. Like that was the asking price for Trent Frederick.
Here's a question. Olivier could be dealt at the deadline. Does he get a first rounder?
No. Second.
Depends on what the next 3 months look like, but yeah, you're probably right. But no, Frederick doesn't do much for me. I know I said I wouldn't trade him for nothing, but he has not lived up to his expectation.
Yeah, I've been doing a little digging for this year's draft class, just based on some stuff we're going to talk about later in the show. Not a highly touted draft class coming in. So if you are going to make a deal, this year would be the year to make a deal for a draft pick, because from a lot of people saying it's not a very talented draft class for whatever reason. I don't know who the prognosticators are, but they say, trade your draft pick if you have a chance. All right, moving on. I have some gripes I want to air. It was a long weekend. And before we get into hockey and get into, that fun stuff, have you noticed, Tim, you drive at night a lot?
Sure.
The
Yep.
the brightness of all these cars, these brand new cars, is blinding. Do you notice
Yeah.
that? All right, it
It's
drives me
that
absolutely
white light,
crazy.
right?
It's the blue light, it's the white light. It blinds me to the point where I'm flashing my brights at everybody. And then they give me their brights. I'm like, holy crap. Like, you have another level to these lights? I think everybody has their brights on. And I'm the jerk who just goes on and off with the brights. Like, turn them off, turn them off, turn them off. And then they give me the extra high beams. I'm like, son of a gun. Like, people have it's incredible. There has to be a law to have some sort of just some standards with this because it's dangerous. I can't see from 200 feet away. I'm looking literally down and to the right, like the JFK shooter, back and to the left.
Yeah.
It's too much. So I just wanted to bring that up because I'm sure our listeners feel the same. I don't have a fancy new car, but if I did, I'd probably be a little cautious of my lights. It's too much. And another thing, I'm driving in today in the morning. It's cold, it's snowy. Some Yahoo is passing people on a 2-lane road. I almost pulled him over and beat his doors off. Like, just people are so stupid. I don't know. I know. I'm getting old, Tim. I'm getting old, and everything bothers me. And I try to let it, slide off your back like a water out of duck's back or whatever they say. It's just people. I'm like, how much further ahead are you going to get? I'm gonna see you at the lights in a half a mile, and I do, and I look at him like, what the hell are you doing?
But you're the one getting past. Are you driving slowly? Or are you driving
Tim,
safely in the
there
snow?
was a
Or?
line of like 6 cars this morning, and it's snowing and it's icy and it's on M22. You're not getting that much further ahead. There was a light a mile down the road. I don't know, just stupid. I was in a bad mood from the night before. We had our hockey game Sunday night, 9 o'clock start time, by the way. That's another issue. I didn't get home till 11 o'clock. I will say, Tim, it was the worst game I've ever played in my life. Absolutely horrendous. I think I was coming off of a high from San Jose where it was just so fun. Stepped into that game. I was just turnovers. My give a crap factor was turned right off. I was just completely checked out. So it wasn't good.
Sorry to
It's
hear
just,
that. Were
it's
you
been a
playing with
bad
those
week.
those young kids that could zip around?
No, thankfully not. It was the older group, and they still were just. And you know what? Guys strip me of the puck, and the whole bench goes crazy on their team because it's game 7. And everybody has to like skate and check me the hardest. I'm just like, it's like I don't need this right now. I absolutely don't need this. It was just awful. I didn't even want to go. My wife's like, you should go. It's fun. I get home. She's like, how was it? I'm like, you're a liar. It sucked. I wish I didn't go, and now I got to wake up early in the morning. Thank you. Like that was awful. I got to do all my electrical work at the house this week. It's just. A lot happened. December is going to be a trying month. So everybody out there, join my Patreon because I need to make some money. So get in there, $5 a month. It's a lot of fun.
It is fun. The Slack is just blowing up every day. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. All right, moving on. We got to get into the show. We're going to do a little segment called Old Faces, New Places. And of course, Tim's got a boner for the Bruins. We're going to start with Jake DeBrusk. Former Boston Bruin, smart by him, honestly. He knew he could sense a sinking ship before anybody else could. He priced himself out of Boston. He said, hasta mañana. I'm going to the other coast, Vancouver, where the sushi's fresh, and I'm going to win some hockey games, baby. Slow start in Vancouver. Getting acclimated. Maybe things didn't gel. The whole team had a slow start in Vancouver. Let's be honest. Nobody was playing well. Pedersen, Miller, Hughes. Hughes was always playing good. Everybody kind of just, like the Canucks do every single year. Not good at the beginning. Well, don't look now. He's turned it on. 8 goals in his last 6 games. Vancouver's playing great. Goes back and beats Boston 2-0. Did he get the game winner?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, the second one was an empty netter, I think.
Game winner versus his former team. That had to feel pretty good. Gets a hat trick last night. 4 points. Did that sting a little bit to see Jake DeBrusk finally pulling it together this year, Tim?
No, not. I wouldn't say it stings. I mean, he's up to now 10 goals, 19 points in 23 games. Like, he's playing really well, and that would be, I think that's second on the Bruins. But I like the kid. Like, I want him to do well, and obviously it wasn't working out here. I don't blame him for that. He was the whipping boy for everything that was going wrong, and so now he's gone, and that's fine with me. I'm happy for him, but it does stink that he's not doing those kind of numbers on Boston, and we have these obvious gaps in our top 6. But this is a situation that was only going to end one way, and it's this way. It's him playing well for another team. That's not a surprise.
Listen, the guy's career high 50 points with the Bruins in a lockout shortened season. So a pretty good, not lockout, but just maybe an injury shortened season in 22-23. Does he eclipse his 50-point high this season? He's got 19 and 23. He's still got 60 games left.
Yeah, I mean, that pace is what, like 60 goals?
70 points, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. He's playing on the top line right now with Pedersen, who's also a guy that's had a slow start. He's really picking it up lately. And then they brought in Brock Besser, who came back from an injury last week after he was out for a few weeks. And now that's their top line. And now he's looking really good. So, yeah, I'm happy for him. And it's just cool to see a guy that was looking for a chance in a new team, new situation, new offensive scheme. And he's got it and he's producing. And I like when those stories work out that way.
Yeah, we were so critical of Jake DeBrusk just based on kind of his attitude in Boston. Yeah, his just feeling like everything's owed to him. I'm a first line guy, I deserve more minutes, play me more, this and that. I want a big contract. I want a long-term extension. He never deserved any of it, but he felt like he was that guy and he wasn't treated like it. I can honestly say I'm not happy he's doing good. I think it's nice. If he were to do bad, I would probably be a little more happy about it. It's just one of those things where you want a guy to do good for the most part, but this guy, I feel like he hasn't worked for anything. Does that make sense?
No, I don't
because
think so.
when he turns it on, he's incredible. Like when he wants to go, he's noticeable. But when he shuts it down, Tim, he shuts it down.
Well, I think the nature, and this is the point that I've thought about for a while, is like if you're only a 20 to 25 goal scorer, you're necessarily streaky. You know what I mean? Like if you're not putting up a goal every couple of games at 30, 40, 50, 60 goals, then you're always going to be a streaky goal. And at the end of the year, you're like, 25, that's pretty good. But you do it and you don't score for 8 games at a time sometimes. You know what I mean? And that's kind of Jake DeBrusk. And a lot of those middle tier goal scorers are that way. So I think he's a frustrating player to watch. When he's on, he looks great. He's on right now. And like I said, I'm happy for him. He's also pretty good in the playoffs for all, intents and purposes. So yeah, I think it's fine. I'm not sad or upset about it, and I'm glad that he's doing well. It did sting that he scored that goal in Boston against the Bruins in Boston, but that's just it's good for him. That's a nice little thumbs up to the organization.
Yeah, all right, good for him. Moving on. This one's going to sting these next couple for Detroit fans because they had a couple exodus last year. A couple guys left, some for nothing, some for a little bit of return. They're doing pretty well. Jake Wallman, defenseman, Detroit Red Wings, let him go for nothing. Future considerations. Traded to San Jose. What does that mean? Absolutely zero. So Steve Yzerman woke up and he looked at his depth chart and he goes, you know what? Jake Wallman. No. I don't see a spot for Jake Wallman. Let's see. Who do we have? We got Ben Sherratt. Okay, yeah, he's going to be first line. We got Jeff Petrie. Okay, yeah, he's going to be there. Oh, let's go pick up Justin Hall. Yeah, he fits in nicely. Oh, Eric Gustafson. He's played around. He's a journeyman. Let's pick him up. That'd be nice. Okay, 2 young defensemen. Cornerstones of our franchise. Should we surround them with guys who can move the puck so they don't get hammered every single game? No. Let's not do that. Let's saddle them with an effing anchor to their ankle so they have no chance of making any good plays because they're always back in their own zone, having to break it out on their own because Sherratt, Petrie, Gustafson, and Hall are so bad. So let's get rid of Jake Wallman. There's no room for him on the back end here. So he just lets him go for future considerations. Everybody in the whole world knew that he was going to succeed in San Jose. And what's happened since he's gone to San Jose, Tim?
Yeah, he's got 19 points in 23 games. He's a +9.
That's the big one. That's the big one. San Jose's a crappy team. They give up a lot of goals. I think they're net probably -50 on the year. He's +9 on San Jose. Sorry.
Yeah, well, the key stat with that is only 3 power play points. So he's generating all this offense at 5-on-5 on a team that doesn't score a ton of 5-on-5 goals. And he's doing this while he's averaging 22.5 minutes a game. Like he's playing all situations. He's not just some offensive gunslinger who's just, generating power play points. He's doing it all. And Detroit let him go for absolutely nothing. And this is the guy, we've talked a lot about him over the years. And you watch a Detroit game or you see an overtime highlight, he does the gritty when he scores or whatever. and you're like, man, this kid can skate. He's good. And then you look at his stats. Okay, he doesn't put up a ton of points. You watch him, you think he would produce more. But a lot of this, I think this is more an indictment on A, Detroit for letting him go, and B, also Detroit for not having a situation in which he can thrive, because he's doing it on a team that should be worse, and yet he's putting up a ton of points, and he's doing it on 5-on-5.
Yeah, he's incredible. He is a prototypical guy who you want. Doesn't take too many chances, always makes the right play, not too sexy, but he'll put points on the board. It was 19 points. It's a hell of a season. Good for him, and he's being outmatched every single night in the talent level. I watched the Sharks game when I was there in town. They played the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres outmatched them in talent. So like he's always on his heels, and he always makes the right play. So gosh, Steve Yzerman. All right, another guy in the back end from the Detroit Red Wings who is in a new place with a new face. Shane Gostisbehere. If I'm Steve Yzerman looking at my depth chart coming into the season, maybe a swift skating small defenseman would look pretty nice. Maybe take the pressure off of Mo Seider. No, we don't want him. Where does he go? He goes to Carolina, quarterbacking the power play, lethal every single night, 13 power play points, like an absolute dynamo. Exactly what Carolina needed. Exactly what they needed. Ever since that Jake Gardiner went down, there has been a huge hole on the back end for the Carolina Hurricanes. They've been searching. It's hard to fill the shoes of a guy who's just so epic in Jake Gardiner. I think they found it. Shane Gostisbehere, their power play is unbelievable right now. He's playing really good hockey. And here we are. Thank you very much, Steve Yzerman. You big dummy. He let him go away for nothing. Absolutely nothing. So two first-line defenders. Jake Wallman's playing 22 minutes a game, first D pairing in San Jose. Shane Gostisbehere getting plus 20 minutes a game in Carolina. He gets nothing. Nothing. I don't care who he drafts. Oh, Mason Raymond, Mo Seider, Edmondson's looking really good. This guy let two just prime trade, just prospects, assets walk away for absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And don't look now. Guy over in Vancouver, Philip Roenick, looking pretty damn good too.
Yeah.
He could have Wallman, Gostisbehere, Roenick, Edvinsson, Seider on his back end. You throw those five guys out there, best decor in the league. Right now, he's got the worst decor in the league. So bad. Suck on that one, Steve Yzerman. He's such a nice guy. I shouldn't say that, but I've committed to this, and so I'm taking it to this length because look at this. Shane Gostisbehere, Tim, you're there. What is he doing in Carolina? It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at Carolina for a second. They signed him to a 3-year deal on July 1st, so he was one of the big signings. And we knew they lost Pesci to New Jersey. They lost Brady Shea, Tony D'Angelo, which is the guy that we thought should have gotten a bigger opportunity. There's a big hole in the back end. You got Brent Burns, he's getting older, Slavin. And you got Shane Gostisbehere. I remember thinking, like, okay, maybe he could run the second power play unit. Maybe he doesn't hurt you. He's a bottom six guy that maybe puts up a quiet 35 points or whatever. He's killing it. He's doing really well. 19 points. He's run power play one with Aho and Nate Josh and Svechnikov and even Seth Jarvis. Like, he is the guy right now. And I know he's not playing all situations because Slavin's still their top defenseman, but offensively, it's Gostisbehere. And then they lost a lot of offense. And even Brady Shea, I didn't realize how many points he puts up. He's averaging like 35 to 40 every year, Brady Shea was. And he was doing that while shutting down other lines. And so that was a big hole that they lost. And now Gostisbehere is playing really well. Yep. And it's cool to see a guy that, getting a good chance, just like Wallman, identical stat lines basically. And of course, Detroit let these guys, both of them, go for absolutely nothing.
It's so bad.
Asset management, man. That's one of the things you have to judge a GM on. Player development, drafting, trading, asset management, and getting the most out of guys when you're going to let them go. And this is a good example of what not to do.
And good teams who know where they are at in their franchise's histories. Like Detroit was poised to take that next step. So you have to retain these guys. You can't just let them walk for nothing. And if you are going to get rid of them, trade them the year before at the deadline. I know you're pushing for the playoffs. I know you're right there. You lost out in the last game. You missed out. But you have to have some foresight. Where are we headed in our franchise? Are we going to let these guys walk in the offseason? He knew that he was going to let him walk. He knew he wasn't going to sign Gossesbear. He knew he was going to get rid of Wallman for future considerations. If you know this, you have to make adjustments and get something for these guys. It's a cardinal sin to let people walk for free. The biggest bonehead move, the Columbus Blue Jackets did it years ago when they were pushing for the playoffs, and Bobrovsky didn't do it, and Panarin didn't do it. Huge stain on that franchise. They could have gotten a boatload for those two guys, but they were at least in a Stanley Cup window. Detroit wasn't going to win a cup last year.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that they couldn't have gotten something for Wallman.
Yes.
Even like a second or third round pick. You know what I mean? Like he's yeah.
Listen,
both these teams are happy to have these guys.
The Hawks got a 5th rounder for me. You're getting a second. You're getting a second for Wallman. 100%. Yeah. So I don't care what he does. Yzerman, Detroit, abject failure. All right, moving on. Speaking of trades, yeah, thumbs down. Did you see Gladiator 2?
I haven't yet. I heard the reviews aren't that great.
Yeah, don't bother. I didn't see it either. But I heard the reviews are terrible.
Okay. You said it with such confidence, like you just got out of the theater an hour ago.
But it's just one of those things where Gladiator was such a great movie. There's no topping that. Like, good luck. The storyline was so tight. There was a progression to it. I knew exactly the reason why he was doing it. Like, okay, Maximus, he gets this and he kills his family and he wants revenge and he gets it. Like, how do you duplicate that? Like, what? I guess the new movie revolves around the kid. The wife or the sister of the Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Her son is like the Gladiator now.
Okay.
And then Denzel Washington, who the hell? I don't know how he fits into the whole thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I probably will see it, but not in theaters. I'll watch it when it's out, and I'll stream it on HBO or whatever in 2 months. But yeah, hopefully
Will you watch my movie if it's in the theaters?
Yes, I will. Is that buzzing again?
It's buzzing. It's been picked up. It's very, very much like within the next, I want to say year, potentially. We're rolling. Like they just sent me the new updated script, and it's nice. It's good.
Good.
It is nice, yeah. So look out for that. Speaking of trades, we talked about bad trades, no trades, future considerations. There's a couple trades in the last week that we should touch on. First of all, the Avalanche traded for goaltender Scott Wedgwood. They gave up a young prospect, Justus Eninen, and a 6th-round draft pick. Does this fix the Avalanche, Tim?
No, but it addresses the need they have. Obviously, goaltending's been a huge problem for them with Georgiev not playing well, and I think it's a Noonan. I could be saying that wrong. He's more than a prospect. He's been playing for them, but he just hasn't been playing that great either. And they're bringing in a guy, Scott Wedgwood, and this kind of works for both teams. Wedgwood is not playing that great either, but you know a little bit more of what you got in him. And Nashville's not playing that well either, so maybe you hope that he plays better in Colorado. He's a reliable veteran that can be a solid number 2 and just play every 4th game for you or whatever, maybe every 3rd game with the situation they have going now. It can't be worse than what they've gotten from a Noonan. And then for Nashville, they got a younger goalie that maybe could be a great guy to learn under UC Saros that's a little bit cheaper on the books and sort of helps both teams just a little bit, but it doesn't move the needle a ton in any direction.
If only they had a really good young goalie.
Yeah.
That they could just
but they don't
rely
need
on.
Saros is their guy for 5 more years,
I know, but Askarov was perfect. I don't know. I think they lost that trade. And Colorado, they're such a strange team. I was down on them early in the season, and they go on this big winning streak, and now of late they've lost a couple like bad losses. They get waxed by the Lightning 8-2, lose to Dallas, lose to Edmonton, lose to Vegas. So they lose to the contenders, but then they'll lay an egg or show up all of a sudden and beat the Panthers. It's a very hard team to wrap my head around. Very streaky. I still am not sold on them. I would fully be okay with them and understand they just go on a tear, winning 15 in a row. But it also would make sense if they lost 10 of 12. Yeah. That's the team they are. I don't understand them whatsoever. This will not change them. This is not going to move the needle. A trade that could potentially move the needle. One of the feel-good stories of the year. A little bit better than the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Minnesota Wild. First place in the Central. They have overtaken the Winnipeg Jets, who all of a sudden in the last 10 are 4-6. They've fallen down to earth. They were never going to continue at a hot streak. I think they started, 14, 15, 16 in a row? They were on fire. Well, everybody kind of overlooked the Minnesota Wild. They were slowly but surely plugging on, winning hockey games. They're 16-4-4. They went out and swung a deal. Billy Guerin saw a weakness with the aforementioned Columbus Blue Jackets. They were not happy with their young first-round draft pick from 2022, number 6 overall, David Jiricek. Well, they went kick tires. What do you want for this young defenseman? Well, they came to a deal the other day. The Minnesota Wild acquired David Jiricek and a 6th-rounder for another young, prospect, Damian Hunt, and 4 draft picks. A 1st-rounder, a 2nd-rounder, a 3rd-rounder, and a 4th-rounder. All from different years, all from different teams. The 1st-rounder is the Wilds. The 2nd-rounder is the Leafs. The 4th-rounder is Colorado's, and another one from the Wild. It's all over the place. This David Jiricek, Tim, is all gas, no brakes. This kid stinks in his D zone. Really, really bad. But he has very, very, very high offensive upside. They've already sent him down to Iowa, the Minnesota Wild. They said, okay, we got you. Go learn how to play the game. They are hoping that this kid can go to Iowa, figure out his defensive inefficiencies, continue to grow in his offensive skill, which is, it's elite. And then he comes up and he's going to ride shotgun with Brock Faber. Or be a second D pairing. You got Brock Faber on 1. You got David Jiricek on 2 for the next 8 years. In my opinion, this is a home run for the Minnesota Wild. They gave up a late 1st-rounder, which it will be next year, and I just said earlier in the show, bad draft class, presumably. You get this guy who was number 6 overall 2 years ago for nothing? Next to nothing? 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, who cares? Late 1st-rounder, we all know how I feel about that. This is a great trade for Billy Guerin. This is a home run. This is a number 6 overall pick you're getting, who still has a lot of room to grow. He just turned 21, by the way.
Yeah, no, it looks like a lot at surface value when you look, man, 4 picks and a young prospect for a kid who's barely played a few NHL games, but the talent is there. And when you examine, like you said, it's a bad draft class. It's going to be a late pick. Then after that, it's a crapshoot. When you get like a young, coachable guy that was not happy in his situation. Yep. And this was like something that was, weeks and really months in the making. Like we knew that there was about to be a deal imminent at any point. I think there were 6 or 7 teams that had called about him, just a matter of getting the right return. And they got a pretty good return, all things considered, because when there's always a little bit of bargaining power that you lose when you know a guy doesn't want to be there. So I'm hoping that he gets to, grow his game, grow his confidence a little bit in Iowa and then come up to Minnesota even later this season, potentially, but certainly in the future, and just be a part of their decor for years. They're very, very talented. And they have a system, I think, that can support a young defenseman with some defensive liability and consistencies, because they have such a strong system, and Faber and other guys like that can pick up any slack, and he can learn to make some mistakes in order to generate offense, which I think they're going to need. So, yeah, it's really great pickup for both of them.
And they have the luxury of just letting him sit in Iowa. Like, take the pressure off him. Go down there, learn the game, work on your skills, your D zone coverage, this, that, and the other. We have Spurgeon, Brodin, Middleton, Bogosian, Faber, John Merrill. Like, we're good. Declan Chisholm. Like, we have some good young defensemen. So there is no pressure on this kid to push it, to make an impression. No, we're good. We know how good you are. We gave up a boatload to get you. Now go and get better. I think this is a great move from Billy Guerin. I think you watch. They're going to get $14 million on the books next year. This guy will mostly spend the year in Iowa this year. At a camp, he'll make the Minnesota Wild. He'll have a great year next year. They'll re-up him for 8 years for like $6-7 million. That's my prediction. Tab this episode for when he does sign in 2 years, because this kid will get a long-term deal, and it will be in the $6-7 million range, and he will be right alongside Brock Faber for the next 8 years for the Minnesota Wild. Great move. Great move by Billy Guerin. I love this. All right, let's do some quick hits and get out of here, Tim.
Yeah, one of the star players of the month was Mikko Rantanen out of Colorado, and Pierre LeBrun said that he believes Rantanen believes that he can make $14 million AAV on the open market. He's up for a contract, so you kind of wonder, like, what's his number going to be? Does he stay with Colorado? Does he hit the market? I think he's not out of the realm of possibility. Not that he should be the best player or the highest paid player in the league, but if he's on the open market, what none of these other guys have done, he's going to get some crazy numbers, and he's a very, very not only good but consistent player. And he's proven that he can generate offense on his own. He's not just a product of playing with McKinnon and Makar. He can drive a line. So I wonder what that number is going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. There are some pretty interesting players coming into UFA this coming season. Mitch Marner, you got Rantanen, you got Johnny T, you got some Granlunds. You have some good players who are going to be UFAs at the end of this season. But $14 million, the highest paid player in the league, no big deal. That would just knock it out of the park for him. There's no chance he signs for 14, is there? With Nathan McKinnon making 12.6?
Not in Colorado. No.
Yeah.
No.
That prices him out of Colorado, do you think?
Yeah, but this is also one of those things. This is just one of the agents letting out a rumor as a bargaining chip, and he'll end up signing a quote unquote discount for like 12.5 or 12.3 or something just to be under McKinnon. Who knows? Who
do you have, Rantanen or Marner? Which one would you rather have on your team?
Oh, Rantanen, easily. Yeah, way better.
You think so?
Don't you think? Yeah.
I don't think it's that clear cut, much of a I think Marner's a hell of a hockey player. His defensive game is really solid. His offensive game is there's not many that are better. The guy consistently puts up 90 points. So yeah, I'd probably take Rantanen. But I don't think so. All right, moving on. What else are we talking about?
A couple of trade rumors here. Scott Lawton and Rasmus Ristolainen are reportedly getting plenty quote unquote trade interest right now. Briere's getting calls on both of those guys on the Flyers. You're laughing.
I love Risto. Great guy. But at what point do we just this guy's never not on the trade talk? Every season he's played, the guy's always been, he's going to get traded. The rumors are swirling. Rasmus Ristolainen, he's on the trading block. Poor kid cannot catch a break. He signs a 6-year deal with the Philadelphia Flyers. He was going to find some security, settle down there. No, ever since he's been in Philadelphia, the fans have been calling for his head. So I don't know. He's not having a great season. He's never really had that breakout season that you wanted him to have. Just an impactful player on both ends of the ice, big hits, good on the power play, this and that. They invested. He was, I think, the 8th overall for the Buffalo Sabres. And it just never, he hasn't been a bad player, but it hasn't worked out in Philadelphia. I'll say it that much. So if they could get rid of him for a first rounder, I think you make that trade.
Yeah, I think so. He's in year 3 of 5 at 5.1 for 2 more years after this season. There's not a lot of guys that want to take that on. He's a good. I mean, he's an NHL defenseman. I'll say that, but no one's going to pay him for that. So
yeah, I think he's paid correctly. I don't think he's.
You think he's worth 5?
Yeah, I think he is. Okay. 5's not a lot these days. I think 5 is. Who's that guy? Dylan DeMello makes 5.
You're right.
So I think that's a good number for him. All right. Speaking of defensemen, Matthew Olivier. We asked him at the end of the show, who's the most underrated player in the league? And he goes, Zach Werenski. And I go, that's an interesting name. I never really would have thought of that. Well, don't look now. Over his last 8 games, he got 5 goals, 11 assists, plus 14, 2 game-winning goals, bunch of blocked shots, almost a half an hour on the ice per game. This guy's legit. And he's been legit his whole career. Is he, Tim, even though Cale Makar is doing Cale Makar things, is he the Norris favorite right now for you?
He's certainly going to be a finalist if this continues. I think it's probably, him and the 2 regular guys, Makar and Quinn Hughes, they're just doing great things. But yeah, I think he should get it for what he's done on a team that he doesn't have the same talent surrounding him. And he's carrying a heavy load with the minutes that he's logging, the situation that he's doing. And he's always been a really, really good defenseman. He's been hampered by injuries. He's lost his D. He was really good, obviously, with Seth Jones years ago, and then Seth Jones is gone, and then trade all the offense is gone. He just stayed there. He didn't get the C. He's putting up the numbers. I think he's going to be on Team USA when these 4 roster thing. He's very, very good. I think it'd be nice to see someone new get that Norris Trophy, and it'd be great if it was him for the first time.
It would be nice. But I don't think you can not give it to Makar. He's a sexy pick. He's putting up a ton of points. He'll probably get 100 points this year. You already gave it to Carlson. You have to give it to Makar if that happens. So it is what it is. But it's a fun story what Zach Werenski is doing. All right, moving on. Team Canada, Tim. The roster will be announced soon. Who do you think gets cut? Who do you think makes the team? Or should we save this for another show?
Yeah, I mean, I have some questions about there's a lot of guys who are right on the cusp for whether or not they make it, and it includes guys like obviously Bedard and Celebrini. Do they make the roster? Mark Scheifele's right there, Mark Stone's right there. which one of the guys, can they play a bottom Rob Thomas? Is it worth them to have a bottom four role? Do you want the four best centers, or do you want the right players in the situation? So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The roster should drop later today, so it'll probably be good to analyze that later in the week. But a lot of names, a lot of people are going to be surprised they get left off.
The one thing that's glaring is the goaltending.
Yeah.
It's just completely, the bucket is empty in Canada. Gone are the days of Patrick Waugh and Carey Price and Marty Brodeur, and just you can pick your all-star goaltender. Is it Jordan Binnington? Is that who we're going to war with? Is Logan Thompson going to be that guy? Like, it's just there's nobody, Tim, that you can instill confidence in with this team.
You know who I was excited about? Joey Decord. And I thought, okay, he
doesn't have a passport.
And he doesn't have a passport. So, yeah, man, I don't know. It's probably going to be, I think, Aiden Hill, right? Is he in
how the hell do you not have a passport? You play in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
Don't you, like, I don't understand how that works.
He doesn't have a Canadian passport. So, he's got a passport. I think it's a U.S. one.
But how, like, do you not know I guess, whatever, man. Whatever. Hey, I should talk. I didn't have my passport. I missed my first call up. But yeah, that's the one glaring weakness. You don't need a star goaltender, but it does help. And the USA is flush with goaltenders. Like, they could pick their poison.
Russians too.
Yeah, the Russians aren't in the tournament, but it's which is a mistake. They should have. I think they should do a young guns team, and they should have a Russian team, right? It makes sense, or like a Team Europe or something like that, because you're missing out on so many good players, and it's too bad. But anyways, moving on. Anything else, Tim?
No, that'll it. We're working on some interviews, hopefully later in the week.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. If you were in the United States, if you're in Canada, who cares? I hope you have a good weekend. Had a good weekend, excuse me. We'll talk to everybody Wednesday, Tim?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Cheers, everybody.